Hey everybody, welcome back. I am your host, Joe JDF Foster, and today I'm going to do the Munsters versus the Addams Family. First of all, let me explain, and I apologize for not having done my videos over the last couple weeks, but I had a computer issue where it pretty much died, so I had to get a new one. Um, Now on to what I was going to do. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Munsters and the Addams Family both premiered in 1964 and within a week of each other. On September 18th, 1964, it was the Munsters, while the Addams Family was 6 days later on the 24th. And these two shows, I don't think many comedies could beat it if they tried. And these two took what would traditionally be the idea of, ooh, let's take something scary. They knew these two took that in the opposite direction and said, hey, let's take the scary side of things, flip it, make it a comedy, see what we can do with it. Whereas a lot of people either tried to take the scary characters such as Frankenstein and the vampires and keep them as they were, scary, and make things like Frankenstein versus, Dracula versus whoever, or the creature from the Black Lagoon, or 13 Ghosts. But anyways, back to my point. Okay, what made these two great is that they were comedies, but they were also family shows. And which means that you could actually watch them with your children and there was nothing wrong with it. Or at least in my view, they were. And I've seen kids today that know these shows. And I've also seen adults that can remember watching it when they were kids. And both have had movies and attempted reboots to them at some point. What was interesting is the Munsters reboot was the most recent, as 1313 Mockingbird Lane, or at least I think that was the name of it. And it came nowhere close to being as fun as the original Munsters was. But that actually comes under argument in itself, as I'll get to here in a little bit. Now, with the Addams Family, come on, you had a family who lived on the Macrobay side. Both families actually did, but their ideas were different in the way it was. And Joan Marshall, who played Lily Munster in the original pilot, was, and I'm not the only person who knows this apparently, was said to have looked a lot like Morticia Addams, played by Carolyn Jones. And like I said, I watched this and I noticed it because I remember seeing this and I was like, how did she get to play both roles? Even though the show didn't, even though the Munsters, like I said, this version of the pilot starring Joan Marshall didn't get to air. It would be later added on to where people could find it, or you can find it online. And like I said, when I saw it, I thought it was interesting because I thought it was the same woman also, and then I looked it up and saw it wasn't. Also, both shows would make jokes that would reflect on being different from societal ideas, such as There was a comment at one point where sorry, froze up there for a second, where Lily on the Munsters tells Eddie, her son, that he needed to stop dawdling, or he would actually be on time for school, rather than actually trying to make it where he would be early or he would be late and be like typical worried parent. Also, sorry, computer's slightly messing with me at the moment. No, I like it. Another one was how they would. Okay, never mind. Oh, that's okay. I know why I didn't put that there. That's because it comes up later on. Sorry. Again, I took up time and I shouldn't have done that. But the show, but both shows also had things that were reflected of society that were important then and even to this day, such as how family is actually important and the care for each other that they have and how they're willing to help others as well as help each other out. Something I didn't know is that when these shows first aired, the Nielsen ratings, they were, when that first season ended, they were very high. But by the end of the following season, both shows were canceled, which would have been the 66th season, which is kind of sad to know. Because, like I said, I found both these shows humorous and thought they were great. Okay, now I'm going to dig into these shows separately. Let's dig into the Munsters. The Munsters' entire first season is actually, the opening for it is actually a parody. And like I said, okay, and also, if I don't flat out say it's a rumor, then it means I found it on multiple sources to actually say it. Rather than just one or two places, I found a lot of places and even some places where they actually talked to the people involved that were involved with the show in some way that spoke about this outright. The first season's opening is actually a parody of the Donna Reed show from 1958, where Donna Reed is shown giving each of the children that are each of the family members that are leaving the house their lunches. And in the original pilot, and this I actually knew part of, and like I said, I actually saw it when it was done in color. When I actually saw it, the original pilot, which featured Joan Marshall in the role, was actually done in color, but it didn't test well with audiences when they did it. And also, the studio didn't want to pay an additional $10,000 to color each episode. So they decided to switch it to the black and white, as well as getting the replacement for Lily that they came to. Now, I didn't know that the part about the $10,000 to color each episode, but I did know that it didn't test well with the audiences, and I also remember hearing that that the role of Lily, the audiences weren't exactly feeling that she was fitting to the character, that the actress, mean, that Joan Marshall was fitting to the character. Okay, now, this is a rumor I found on 2 different places. The Munsters house actually appears in a 2004 episode of Desperate Housewives. I don't know what episode, so if you can find it, give me the time in the episode when it occurs, because I would really like to see that. Because I was not a fan of Desperate Housewives, and the fact that it does that is interesting to me. Okay, now here's another one. I don't know if it's a rumor, because I did find it in more than 2 places, but I didn't find it in enough that I would consider it to actually be fact. The actor who played Grandpa was actually younger than the actress who played Lily, and Fred Gwynne, who played Herman Frankenstein, was actually the youngest of the adults. Marilyn, despite her age, was actually considered a child on the show. Though I'm actually pretty sure she was in college during the show. During the series run. And also, despite popular belief, the first couple to share a bed, it actually wasn't the Munsters. I thought this, but it turns out it was 1947 show called Mary Kay and Johnny, starring Mary Kay and Johnny Stearns, or Stearns. Sorry, I don't know how to say their name properly. Stearns. And a rumor that goes around is that the title of the Munsters actually comes from Fun Monsters combined. Initially, Fred Gwynne and Al, Herman and Grandpa on the show disagreed with the recasting when they wanted to bring in Yvonne De Carlo, one who would play Lily on the show. But they would later admit that they were wrong, and she was a great comedic actress. Which I have to give them. Compared to Joan Marshall, Yvonne was genius in that area. Joan was good, but it's just something about it Yvonne was able to bring to the role that made it different. But at the same time, she also knew how to do the loving family member that was great. Something people don't know or don't realize is that long after this happened, after this series ended, Fred Gwynne would do 2 movies in the late 80s, early 90s. And these 2 movies would be interesting because he would play roles that, one, would make him close to the character of Herman, but in the opposite way. Because he would actually do a Stephen King movie. And the other one was a flat-out comedy. In the one where he did the Stephen King movie, he was the neighbor in Pet Sematary. And the comedy, he's the judge in My Cousin Vinny. Which, if you watch Legal on YouTube, I forget what the channel's name is, but it's the guy who does the movie reviews from the legal standpoint and how close they are to being right or wrong, or actually being legitimate. he even admits that My Cousin Vinny is the most legally sound movie that is done. Which I find interesting because the fact that it's a comedy is the one that's the most legally accurate is impressive. Okay, also on the show, okay, now here's the one I had interesting. I mean, I initially wanted to put under the interesting facts that they shared, but instead went the opposite way with and put it on its own because it dealt with a particular area. On the show, the character Marilyn, who I want to believe was named after Marilyn Monroe, though probably not, was considered to be the ugly one in the family. The reason why I found this interesting is because it actually reminds me of the Twilight Zone episode, Eye of the Beholder, where they flipped the idea of beauty, where they showed it to be a personal aspect rather than an overall. Because the people would go on the dates with Marilyn, and they'd be all happy, even willing to kiss her, walk her to the door. But the moment Herman and the rest of the family would open the door, she would turn, and the person she was with would be gone. And then the family would wonder, when is she ever going to find somebody that will accept her for her looks and actually be with her? Not realizing that it was actually them that scared the dates away. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the Addams Family. A rumor I found to start this off is that it actually has to do with the theme song. Since they didn't want to pay somebody, I mean, they didn't want to pay people to do the song, they actually had one guy basically dub over himself 2 or 3 times and perform the song himself. And then just went with that. Also, another rumor that I found was that John Astin's jacket in the show, John Astin, and I know I'm probably mispronouncing his name, is the guy who plays Gomez. But his jacket, due to his character of Gomez being a smoker, was lined with asbestos. If this is true, then it actually proves that people back then really didn't have a clue as to dangers of the material that they were using. Another interesting, now this is actually something I found in multiple areas, and even something where it was admitted about the show on a trivia detail. The train crash sequence in which Gomez would blow up the trains is actually done in was actually done in one shot. The interesting part of this is that later in the series, anytime you would see him blowing up the train, it was that same scene replayed. Now, this is an interesting rumor, because if it turns out that this one's actually true, I'd find it to be really surprising. Jackie Coogan, who played Uncle Fester, who, by the way, it turns out, wasn't the children's uncle, but their great uncle. It was actually Morticia's uncle in order of descendancy. I mean, in order of the family. Well, anyways, Jackie Coogan, who played the role of Uncle Fester, originally declined the role. Well, he decided to have some fun, or he decided to try something out when he went home and actually shaved his head and did the makeup for the role. And he looked at himself in the mirror, and he changed his mind and managed to somehow get it to where they decided to give him the role instead of going with somebody else. So got lucky on that one by the sounds of it. Also, another rumor, Gomez, because this one I'm not actually sure on. This one I can actually believe, but I'm not 100% on. Gomez and Morticia were actually the first American, as in the United States of America, television couple to be implied to have a sex life on TV. Now, again, I'm not 100% sure, but this one I can actually truly believe. I mean, because we're talking about shows like I Love Lucy and the Munsters and Donna Reed and shows like that were around. They're not going to, and then I Dream of Jeannie, where things weren't shown or allowed to be talked about like that. Okay, now this is something I didn't know that sounded interesting. Thing, whose actual full name was T Thing, because the T in the name actually stands for thing. So the name was actually Thing, as it was revealed in an episode. Was actually a left hand. I mean, was actually a right hand. Sorry, misspoke there. But occasionally, Ted Cassidy, the actor who played Lurch, would use his left hand, or go southpaw if you want to say that, just to see if people would notice. I'm actually curious to see how many would, because me personally, no, I didn't. And here's a rumor, and if this one's true, I would be really happy. Okay, Cassidy, the actor who played Lurch, received mail from teenage girls that stated he was cuter than the Beatles. And like I said, I would love for this one to be true because I am not a Beatles fan and I enjoyed Cassidy's acting. To me, the Beatles were not music. They were lucky songwriters who just happened to hit and who just happened to get lucky somehow. And I'd actually like to say that one was probably due to drugs in some way. And the fact that there was a war going on. But still, the Beatles, no. I'd like to believe Cassidy's acting was actually did get him that mail that said he was cuter than the Beatles. Because, no, the Beatles weren't worth it. Sorry. Also, it was actually Carolyn Jones and John Aston's, sorry, or Gomez and Morticia's, the actors who played Gomez and Morticia. It was actually their idea to have the grand romance, as they call it, the great love between the two characters, as parents at that time were seen as being asexual. Yeah, you could see the "I love you" or something, or holding hands, but that was basically all they got. So they thought this was actually a better idea, and personally, I agree. This was a great idea, but with the Munsters, the asexual habit was okay in that case because it worked for them. Wednesday's name, I actually forgot about this. But there's actually an old nursery rhyme. And that's actually where they got Wednesday's name from. The part I forgot is that it was actually it was actually the old nursery rhyme that had this. Is actually the old nursery rhyme, because I remember Wednesday. I liked the character. The child was awesome. The actress that played her did it really well. But the nursery rhyme that Wednesday's name comes from is actually called. It actually uses the phrase "Wednesday's child is full of woe," or "Wednesday's child full of woe." Um, Now on to the next thing. This one's a rumor because I can't find it, but in like one, maybe two places. Carolyn Jones and Charles Addams. Actually, Carolyn Jones was actually Charles Addams' personal choice to play Morticia. Carolyn Jones was actually a fan of Addams' cartoons that he did for the paper, which includes the Addams Family, at least according to the rumor. And Addams and her met, and they became friends. And when they came to the show, he wanted her because he felt she would be right for it. And as for my last detail on this I also did not know. Gomez was actually originally in arranged marriage to Ophelia, Morticia's sister. But him and Morticia fell in love, and they got married. What's really interesting, Gomez's idea of flirting. They were talking, and I said, this must have been this, I'm guessing, is an episode I missed, because this was genius in the way it's done, and I find it funny in its own right. But anyways, Gomez's idea of flirting with Morticia at one point was, has anyone told you that you have the softest brown eyes? Morticia's answer, no, besides my eyes are blue. And Gomez tells her with a smile, no wonder nobody's told you. And yet somehow I could see where that could probably get a laugh in some way. But at the same time, I could see that having gotten him slapped, or wondering if there was something wrong with him in some way, and moving on. He just lucked out and found a woman who thought he had a great sense of humor, and it led to a great family. And also, Lurch. One of the few people I know who in history who has had a line that people memorize so easily because it's so repeated and so simple. You ran. Yeah. Sorry, I can't do it. I admit it. Sorry, it's really hard to do. I don't know how he got it so deep. The guy did it really well. Cassidy did that really well. And actually, there were times growing up, I actually wished I could have done that voice the way he did, because it would have been great for certain Halloween ideas, or for certain ways to mess with people as a joke, or to scare them. But okay, now on to my final notes. In my view, both shows are great, and it's hard to choose between the two. And just to let you know, I would rather watch marathons of these two shows than any other comedy TV series, with the exception of Saturday Night Live. That one, because it had it hits and hits and misses, same as any other thing. But more often than not, it was actually really good. So, but TV shows wise, actual TV series, sorry, it goes to the great Munsters and Addams Family for comedies. And my final note on this is I give them a tie with the grade of an A. So tell me, what were your thoughts on the Addams Family and the Munsters? What was your favorite character episode from the series? Or what was your favorite detail on what I gave about on the details I could give? Also, let me know in the comments. Also, leave a like and let me know what you would like for me to do for a future episode. As I do read these comments and I do take them into account when I think of what I'm trying to do next. Because I want the viewers to be happy and I like what I'm doing. And I like find out details on my own as I do this. That helps. I actually do research on these things to make sure that I'm not just making stuff up or just giving personal opinions on my own. I like giving my opinions, but I also like giving facts. And again, leave me a comment with your favorite character, episode, notes that I gave, and what you would like for me to do for a future episode. What you would like for me to do for a future episode, as well as a like, subscribe, and till next time.